The Commanders coaching staff is finally addressing the concerns that are plaguing the defense. But what changes are they willing to make, and whose feelings are they willing to hurt? Guys, we got an awful lot to talk about on this show. Another live edition of the Full Command Show. I appreciate you guys all joining here. My name is Grant Mitchell, and we're here to discuss pretty much exclusively the state of the Washington Commanders defense. What is going on with that side of the football? Why can't they figure it out? Which players need to be addressed? What are the coaches saying? What are they prepared to do moving forward? We are going to get into all that as we go through here, guys. But if you are joining me in the live chat, do me a favor, guys. First of all, drop some comments as we go through here. Make sure that you let me know your thoughts on what we were talking about. But if you are in here, hit that like button, okay? That is the number one way to support me and to support the channel. And it is the easiest way to get the stream out there to other viewers. As we go through here, do drop the comments. I will pop them up on the screen and make sure that I reply to as many as I possibly can. Got a comment already rolling in here from Big Obi, my guy. What's up, Grant? Tough day today. Shaking my damn head. Yeah, man. I get it. Thankfully, I work from home, so I don't have to drive into an office. But I will admit, working from home, it's actually easier to get distracted, probably. I'm not complaining, don't get me wrong, but it's easy to get distracted. And when I work on my computer for a living and all the ESPN tabs, the Pro Football Focus tabs, everything is right there for me. It's very easy for me to drift off and just go thinking about what happened last night, man. You know, in a weird way, this video, this live stream is going to be about the defense, but let's just look big picture for a second. In a very weird way, the Monday night loss was the exact inverse of what happened the year before, last year, the Hail Mary game. In that game, the Commanders outplayed the Bears. The Bears should have won. The Commanders deserved to win, but the Bears should have won because of the position they were in towards the end of the game. Obviously, when you're up by 3 points with 10 seconds left, you're supposed to win that game, especially when the team's on the other side of the field. In this game, if you look at things like total yards, yards per play, turnover margin, things like that, the stats will tell you the Bears outplayed the Commanders and deserve to win. Yet the Commanders are the ones who have the ball up a couple of points with 3 minutes left in a position, 3rd and 1. You convert on that. You can bleed the clock out. The game's over. Or if you get stuffed, you can punt and pin them inside the 10. Caleb's got to drive 70 yards to get into field goal range. And even then, it's a difficult kick in the rain. You can argue the Bears outplayed the Commanders. I think there's also an argument the Commanders outplayed the Bears. It's not as black and white as it was during the Hail Mary game. But point being, it's like the opposite outcomes happening. In one situation, the Bears give the game away on a Hail Mary. In this situation, Jayden Daniels literally gives it away. Like, he has the football, and then he lets go of the football, and the Bears recover it, and they literally take the game into their hands. So, before we jump in here, I was in the office today. The heckling was real because my cubicle literally looks like a man cave. That's brutal. I'm sorry. Hey, hopefully this can be like a therapy session as we go through here. Big Obi, appreciate you. And everyone else, again, if you are joining me in the live chat, please drop your comments as always. I'll pop them up on the screen whenever I can. Hit the like button again. We can get this video out there. And let's just have a big, like I said, let's have a big therapy session. Let's have a big discussion. So the point of this video, I do want to talk about the defense because, like, I'll be honest. I'll give a quick 2 minutes to the offense. Look, Jayden Daniels, weird game. First interception of the year, and then he's scrambling and he just drops the football. It pops right back up to him. But at the end of the game, he fumbles the ball and you lose the game off of that. I was listening to B. Mitch and JP Finley, and I think there was a little bit of dancing between them. I got massive respect for those two guys. Don't get me wrong. I think there was a little bit of dancing. But one thing they pointed out, I think it was JP who said it, Jayden Daniels has single-handedly won probably 10 to 15 games since he joined the Commanders. This is probably the first game he single-handedly lost. And don't get me wrong, he could have gotten some favors from the defense as well. But at the end, those winning time moments Dan Quinn and the staff always preach about, Jayden normally makes that play, drives it down for a game-winning touchdown, fourth quarter comeback. In this situation, you're on the other side of it. So you're not looking at this game like this is an indicator Jayden's not the guy. No, it's much the opposite. Jayden was out there with Chris Moore as his number one receiver, 13 personnel with George Fant playing tight end because Terry's not there. Noah's not there. Debo had 4 catches for 15 yards. He's got an injured heel. You're playing with Luke McCaffrey and Jalen Lane and Ja'Cory Brooks and Tate Martin. If I told you that was the receiving core with Chris Moore as the number one guy, if I told you that during the offseason, you would have thought I was crazy. But that's the spot we found ourselves in. And Jayden was awesome in the second half. Up until that fumble, he was cooking. So Jayden addressed it. He took accountability. We all know it was his fault at the end. We're moving on from it. We're not using that to cast aspersions or say that this is a problem with Jayden moving forward. The defense is an entirely different story. And I don't just want to go big picture here. I'll get to that at the end, and we'll talk about some big stats, and we'll talk about the coach's role in all this. But I do want to talk about players. And this is how I'm going to preface this. It's okay to discuss players' shortcomings and some of their downfalls while still being thankful for what they've done, acknowledging that there are good players. Everybody gets washed at some point in their career. Everybody makes mistakes. These things happen. When I come here and I criticize players, it's not because I have an agenda. I see the comments about it. There aren't very many, but to the people who say I push agendas or I push narratives, I couldn't be further from the truth. I watch the games. I listen to interviews from the players, from the coaches. I look up stats an awful lot, like a lot, and I formulate my opinions and I share them here. Now, if you disagree with my opinion, that's totally fine. I respect your opinion. I respect your right to express it and to tell me mine is wrong. But there is no agenda pushing here. These are just my opinions that I've formulated off of my observations. So, with that out of the way, I want to talk about Bobby Wagner. Hall of Famer, future gold jacket, one of the best players on the Commanders defense last year. He's still, I've said this numerous times on the channel, when he's moving forward, it feels like he's the best he's ever been. Although this last game may have shifted my course on that. When he's going side to side, when he's going backward, that's where a major issue pops up. And even in this game against the Bears, I don't think he was bad moving forward. He had a really good play at the goal line. He had a tackle for loss. He was in the mug. He was doing some really good stuff. But when the Bears utilized this horizontal gap scheme running system that the Lions found a lot of success with in the playoffs last year, of course, Ben Johnson being the Lions OC back then, he just brought it over to Chicago. And DeAndre Swift, who was statistically the worst starting running back in the NFL this season, all of a sudden he has his first 100-yard game of the season and his first 100-yard game since the last time that he played the Commanders, quite predictably. So it's that side-to-side stuff. And you also saw it in the passing game where Bobby Wagner's lack of speed has just caught up to him. Now, this is not my opinion. I want to make this clear. This is not my opinion. This is a statistical fact. So Bobby Wagner this season has taken 200 snaps in coverage. That's 33 per game. He's allowed 2.5 receptions per game, 35 receiving yards per game. That's fourth in his career. He's allowed over just about 1.04 yards per coverage snap. That's the second highest of his career. He's allowed 13.8 yards per reception. That is the highest in his career. And he's allowing the most yards after catch per reception, which obviously is the highest in his career. It's clear to see that he has lost a step. And this is not me saying Bobby Wagner is a bad player. I'm not taking away anything that he's done. But is he a guy who should be on the field 100% of snaps? Intellectually, you can't replace what he brings. He's a signal caller. He's a genius. When other teams go no huddle, he's the guy who's making the calls. You don't need a defensive coordinator. Joe Whitt Jr. is up in the booth watching. Bobby is making the calls on the fly. He's the one making checks when the offense calls audibles, when there's a bunch of motion going on. Wagner's the one communicating all of that. So he's incredibly valuable to this team from that perspective, but he just doesn't have the legs anymore. That pass that Olamide Zaccheaus dropped on a crossing route near the goal line, if he caught that, Aikman said he would probably still be running. I only got the TV angle, but that looked like a minimum 30-yard completion. And we've just seen that too many times with Wagner. And it's nothing against him personally. He's just old. That's all it is. When players get old, they retire from sports. I'm not telling Bobby Wagner to hang it up, but I'm saying to the coaching staff, hey guys, you have a clear lack of speed in the middle of the field and other teams recognize that. Do I have to run through the list again? The Trey Tucker, I think it was the Trey Tucker play against the Raiders, the Kyle Pitts play against the Falcons, the Tucker Kraft play against the Packers, the Bijan Robinson rail route. Now this, teams are finding different ways to exploit Wagner's lack of speed in the middle of the field. And when you pair him up with Frankie Luvu, who is not a coverage linebacker and who also is slow, that's how you get these massive seams in the middle of the field. That's why the zone coverage at times looks so soft or looks so open, because you don't have speed. You don't have players who can have this great range and get to different areas. And then when that happens, you've got Quan Martin trying to do too much. You've got Jeremy Reeves trying to do too much. You've got Lattimore. Amos hasn't really done it, but you've got Sainristil falling victim to it. And some of the communication is still off. There was a play where Lattimore passed off, I think it was a Dunze on a crossing route. Wagner didn't see it, and then he doesn't have the speed to recover to him. This is a I feel like I'm beating a dead horse. I feel like I'm just beating the drum over and over at this point. And I'm not saying here like I'm a genius football analyst. That's not what I'm saying. I get frustrated when it's easy things to notice, yet the coaching staff doesn't seem to be able to find contingency plans or alternatives. That's what gets me frustrated. I'm not frustrated that they can't come up. I'm not frustrated that Joe Whitt Jr. isn't the best defensive coordinator in the NFL. I'm frustrated that in all the meetings with Joe Whitt Jr. and Dan Quinn and all the position coaches, they can't seem to realize, hey, we don't have speed. It's that simple. I'm going to skip ahead and I'm going to go to some stats here, but this one is particularly interesting and it pertains to what I am saying right here. So the Commanders are 29th in yards allowed per pass play. Now, obviously that's bad, but they're 7th in completion percentage allowed. So that sounds like it might be a good thing on its own. But think about those two things together. How are you allowing completions at the 7th lowest rate, but you're giving up the 4th most yards per pass attempt? Well, the answer to that is they lead the league in a bad way in yards allowed per completion, and it's not remotely close. They're allowing a full yard more than the Cincinnati Bengals, who are 31st. The Commanders are allowing more than 12 yards per reception. That's how you end up 29th in yards allowed per pass attempt, despite being relatively stingy. You generate pressure at an elite rate. Your completion percentage is extremely low, and that's credit to the defensive line getting in there and disrupting the quarterbacks. But if the quarterbacks can throw the ball, like if they've got time at all, even Caleb, whose wild inaccuracy was on display, Caleb missed a ton of throws in this game, but even still, when he got time in the pocket, he was shredding the zone coverage. Justin Herbert only had 160-something yards. A lot of those were negated by penalties. But when he got time in that pocket, he was shredding the zone defense. Geno Smith, he has one game this season where he hasn't thrown an interception. It was against the Washington Commanders because he goes for 250 and 3 touchdowns. It's a recurring theme, and I just have to wonder, at this point, why are we not at least considering alternatives? I get it. I'm not in practice, okay? I don't want to be a hypocrite because these are things that I've said before. Coaches will tell you what they think of players. Coaches know players better than we do. I'm not at practice. I'm not seeing Kane Medrano. I'm not seeing Jordan McGee. I'm not seeing Ali Cajo. I get it. The coaches know the situation better than I do. But with that being said, I do know the situation that the Commanders' pass defense is flat out sorry. It is terrible. So what's the harm? You give Jordan McGee what they gave him, I think 12 snaps in the Chargers game, and he flashed on 3 of them. He flashed on 25% of his snaps. Well, that's a pretty good return. I felt like he'd at least earned the right to get out there and give it another try. Joe Whitt Jr. said the Bears love to use 12 personnel in that situation. We're going to get Jordan McGee on the field. We're going to run 4-3, and he'll be out there. A, did he show his hand? Did he telegraph it? Because the Bears rarely went to 12 personnel in this game, despite being so effective in it. But B, even when they weren't using 12 personnel, when Caleb was cooking, when the running game was getting anything they wanted, the horizontal side-to-side stuff where you need speed in the middle of the field, when that wasn't working, can Jordan McGee not get on the field in any capacity? He had 1 snap. And I'll be honest, I don't know what it was, but I would assume it was by the goal line because he's been on the goal package all year. But what is he doing wrong? Kane Medrano was drafted as this converted wide receiver, and Medrano's got tackling issues. I get it, but you know what? The whole defense has tackling issues. If I have to sit there and listen to Dan Quinn and Joe Whitt Jr. say one more time the identity of the team, run and hit style, Rough Riders, Band of Brothers, he's such a dog-ass competitor, we're going to run and hit, we're going to fly to the ball, the way we play isn't for everybody. Well, clearly it's not for everybody. Because NFL teams don't miss tackles at this high of a rate. I watch so many NFL games every week. I watch film, not like I watch the All-22 that's publicly available if you buy an NFL premium account, but I'm watching these things. Other teams don't miss tackles like this. So when you say the way we get down isn't for everybody, why can't I see that on the field? Since Dan Quinn has taken position and he's brought Joe Whitt Jr. with him and these other coaches, all they've said is we got to produce the ball. The ball is life. We got to force turnovers. It sounds good. It sounds great. That's how I would want my team to play too. But they are not getting the players to do it. I mentioned this in my video I posted earlier today, but we're at the point where there's a hesitation to call out mistakes. It's becoming very lip service. And when you're winning games, people are naturally, the reporters, everybody's just naturally not as inclined to ask real questions. You're not really hey, you just won 35-17, but you gave up this conversion on 3rd and 13. What went wrong on that? You're not going to get a lot of that. So now that the losses are happening, there's more and more questions that are coming out. Yet I'm hearing the same old stuff from DQ and Joe Whitt and some of these other coaches, but I'm not seeing any changes. So soon I'm going to take it in my own hands, and we as fans should be able to do that. If the coaches are not going to take accountability, if the players aren't going to take accountability, and I'm not saying all of them aren't, okay, like I listened to Kinlaw, he takes accountability, Jayden took accountability for the fumble, not applying this to everybody, but what I am saying, when there are these clear, repeated mistakes, and you tell me that you're going to fix them and you don't, then you're leaving it to me to decide who's at fault. Is it bad coaching? Are the players not executing? What is it? I feel like we've arrived at that point. I'm going to check the comment section before I move on here. This loss felt like the old days. This fan base is still suffering from PTSD. We were angry, frustrated, and some even started arguing with each other. Yeah, 100%. One of the things that I've been really surprised to see, and I disagree with this opinion. I'm not saying your opinion is wrong, because your perspective is never wrong. But one feeling that I have seen from a lot of people in my comments and on Twitter is people getting frustrated with Jayden for all the smiling and laughing after the mistakes. And it's a little confusing to me, because I'm wondering, do you want him to start shouting? Do you want him to sit there with a frown on his face? I get it that he probably processes his emotions differently from most of us, but also what we know about Jayden is, first of all, he's too cool for school. He's got that California cool about him, but also he is the leader of a team. And so Zach Ertz is probably pissed off. Bill's probably pissed off when he fumbles. Devo's probably pissed off. But if you look to your leader, the best player on your team, and he's smiling like, hey, guys, don't worry, we'll get it cleaned up, or that's my fault, whatever. I feel like that's – I know that is best for that moment. And even when Jayden when he fumbled at the end and he's got like a little half smile walking off the field, have you guys never messed up in your personal lives? Just think of anything and just like done a little smirk like, can't believe I did that? It's the same thing. Jayden's just not scowling. He's not screaming at anybody. And be honest, I don't want my quarterback to do that. Now, we've heard the reports that Jayden is like kicked guys out of the huddle if they were late and caused a delay of game during practice. And we've heard things like that. So it's not like Jayden is a leader. It's not like he's not accountable. But I feel like he is doing the right thing when he's in those situations and you see him smiling and you see him laughing. But if you feel differently, please go to the comment section and tell me why. Again, I'm not saying your opinion is wrong. It's just different than mine, but be interested to learn yours. We need Reek Woolen and Max Crosby right now via trade. So here's the thing about that. So first of all, I agree there would be massive welcome additions to the team. However, with the team sitting at 3-3 and knowing that they're in the upcoming draft, they don't have a second-round pick. They've got 2 top 100 picks. They're going to pick in the first. Right now, it would be in the teens, and then they'll pick again in like the 80s, and that's it for the top 100 picks. I get it. The Max Crosby thing specifically would be awesome. Completely changes the tenor of your defense. With that being said, let's say, so this next 4-game stretch is brutal, right? You've got at Dallas, at Chiefs, short week, primetime, Seahawks, and then Lions. Right now, with how this team is playing, 2-2 feels like a good stretch there. So you get to halfway through the season, over halfway through the season. I know the trade deadline would have passed at this point, but just humor me on this. You get halfway and you're 5-5. You're already light on draft assets, and you're thinking trade for Max Crosby. I'm not faulting the thought of trading for Max Crosby, because obviously that would be phenomenal, and that's a DPOY candidate who makes the team better. But I just don't know that the team is in a position to do that right now. Now, the Reek Woolen thing is interesting. I made a video talking about how you could make that happen. It was a pretty unpopular opinion at that point, I will say that much. But there's some players on this Commanders team you could potentially move. It would depend on if Seattle's still willing to move off of Woolen, and also if they'd be interested in some of the players you would send back their way. I feel like using players more so than picks is the best way to get that done. T. Higgins trade would fix the offense. Yeah, I got to wonder what's going to happen with Cincinnati. They're going to move off of Hendrickson, I'm sure, because he is out of contract at the end of this year. And also he is the oldest of their players. But like, they just re-signed Jamar. They just re-signed T. Trading for Flacco, they're telling you we think we can still make the playoffs because it's so wide open in the AFC. But I just don't feel like you can pay your guys 2 receivers that much money and survive. And looks like the Bengals are going to have a losing record anyway. So T might be out of their next couple of years. Might be a hot take, but I say we draft a wide receiver in the first round, then draft only defensive players for the rest of the draft. Well, Okay, so two things here. Number one, I love this approach of saying like this is the position I want in this round and this round. But the thing is, you never know how things are actually going to play out. Like if Mekhi Lemon and Jordan Tyson and Denzel Boston and Antonio Williams and anyone else is on the board, if they're all off when the Commanders are picking, and you say, "Oh, I need a receiver here. I got to reach and I got to pick this guy," you're going to end up regretting it. So I hear what you're saying, and I'm sure you're saying this just in fewer words of if the right guy's available, you take receiver. Personally, for me, I would love a big-time receiver, and I do think the Commanders should draft one. I don't think it should be that early. I think you just keep stockpiling 2, 3, 4, fifth round sort of guys. But that number one, you need a game changer on defense. I'm sorry, but we're at this point where it's the same old story over and over and over again. And you can't really, I don't think you can trade for a marquee sort of defensive player right now. So I feel like you have to get him or acquire him through the draft. My personal order, as far as who I would like from a defensive perspective, again, this is assuming the right guy is available. I'm not encouraging anyone to reach. I would say linebacker is the biggest need for me. It is. You've drafted 2 corners in the second round. You at least have to hope that they can continue to elevate or continue to improve and elevate the defense. You got to at least address another position, especially with Wagner being 35 years old. So I would say linebacker. I would say then you go edge rusher. Then I would say you go safety corner. You could convince me for either one. It would be dependent upon who's available at that position. But I do agree a receiver needs to be drafted because Terry at the end of next season, that's when his cap hit changes from something like 18 million to 35 million. And the way the season is going, it's not off to a good start right now. We'll see how he looks when he gets back. He's probably going to decline next season just because that's what happens when you get to 31 years old. So I feel like you have to move off of Terry at the end of next season. And Adam Peters kind of told you that with the way that he structured the contract. So at that point, Luke's got to be ready to go. Jalen Lane's got to be ready to go. And you have to have drafted some more guys, especially with the Noah Brown injury concerns. We don't have PTSD from losing, we don't have PTSD from losing, but PTSD from the way we lose. We did it to ourselves 100%. Apparently, there was a front office member, don't know who, but apparently there's a front office member who said in the tunnel as people were walking off the field, we effing gave it away, which sums it up very well. I've been saying this is lip service for 2 straight seasons. Looks like DQ is a player's coach. Well, we did know that about DQ, to be fair. We did know DQ was a player's coach. You hear everybody say that about him when they join it. And to be fair, being a player's coach is not a bad thing in and of itself. I'm sure the Dolphins wish Mike McDaniel was a player coach, but he can't get guys to show up for meetings. The players can't hold each other accountable. It's not that being a player's coach is a bad thing. It's that you have to still be schematically sound and you still have to be able to coach your players up. And with the way the front office is drafted, they've gone about this in a way that suggests they trust the coaches to develop. Johnny Newton, think about it. He was a physical specimen. He was a prospect. Josh Connolly Jr. was a prospect. Madrano is a prospect. Jordan McGee is a prospect. All these guys had great athletic scores, lower production, and they said, hey, Joe Whitt, DQ, we trust you guys to bring these players along. Now, I will say this. I've been really impressed by Johnny Newton this season. I think that's a very quiet story. I think you have really seen what a full offseason in an NFL program can do for a player. He's playing much bigger. The way that the cap is shaping up, I just don't think Daron Payne is going to be back. And I think Newton is getting better and better, and that's going to give them confidence to move off of Payne in the offseason, but we can revisit that later on. They better start making moves, trade if needed. We are in trouble. Yeah, we are. The thing is, this is what I would circle back to with the whole trade talk. So if you're going to make a big swing, Max Crosby's on the list, obviously. Reek Woolen would be nice. This front office has not hesitated to make moves, but they did it when it made sense. Now, the Lattimore trade hasn't gone down very well up to this point, but at the time, it had to happen. Even though it hasn't worked out, I'm still not going to say it's the wrong decision. The Commanders knew they had a Super Bowl window that year, and they knew that Lattimore was available on a little bit of a discount, and they knew that their corners were the weakest spot on the team. You had to pull the trigger on it. This offseason, you can get Debo for a 5th-round pick, and then later on you trade B-Rob for a 6th. So really, it's effectively a swap. You had to do that. Tunsil, you had to bring a left tackle to protect your franchise player. Right now, does bringing in Max Crosby make the Commanders Super Bowl contenders? Does it do it this year? Does it do it next year? I think no. I don't think that move in and of itself. You also got to keep in mind the Commanders, I want to say, have more free agents this summer than any other team. So you really have no clue what the team is going to look like next year, and you're already light on your draft assets. So that it's just something to be careful of. I'm not saying it is the wrong move. I'm just saying it's risky, and I'm a little more focused on long-term sustainability and guarantees versus short-term risk. And there's multiple ways to skin a cat. It's just my personal preference. Inconsistent play will cause us not to make the playoffs, with the Bears, Falcons, and Green Bay all holding tiebreakers against us. This is probably my biggest concern in this whole ordeal, because right now, first of all, the NFC is ridiculous. It's with the way that, with Lamar's injury, with the way the Chiefs have regressed a little bit. Granted, they are starting to look better. I still don't think the Bills, I know they're Super Bowl favorites, but like they played two good teams and then they lose back-to-back games. I'm not totally sold on them. The NFC has overtaken the AFC this year, but with me saying that, nobody's the class of the NFC right now. There's just 11 or 12 teams who could legitimately make the playoffs. This is in no order, but here's some of the teams that are in contention for the playoffs in the NFC. The Buccaneers, the Packers, the 49ers, the Eagles, the Seahawks, the Lions, the Rams, the Falcons, the Vikings, the Bears, the Commanders, and then honestly, the Panthers. Don't tell anybody. They actually have a lot of really good advanced metrics. I don't think they're going to do it, but just to include as many people as possible. The Cowboys have one of the best offenses in the NFL. Let's not kid ourselves. And they're doing it without CeeDee Lamb, and they're doing it with a running game we thought was going to be the worst in the league. Now, their defense is my behind, okay? Their defense is my ass. I don't know if they could stop a middle school offense. But if they figure that out, if they become the Commanders of last year, where their defense improves from the worst to 25th, the way Dak and that offense is playing right now, maybe he could carry them to 10-7 and they get in. Point being, there's 12 to 13 teams legitimately competing for the playoffs. So to the point of this comment, not having the tiebreaker against three teams already, also with the general tiebreaker of being 1-3 in the NFC, that's a really big deal. And considering you had a chance to take first place in the NFC East and you didn't get it, you squandered that opportunity, that's a huge miss. We don't have draft capital to make a trade, TBH. Yeah, so this is kind of where I'm at. The Reek Woolen thing, the fact that the Seahawks have kind of openly put him on the market. One of the proposals that I've talked about, I mentioned Brandon Coleman's name in there. A lot of people were offended by that, and I can understand why. The best version of Brandon Coleman represents something immense. A guy who can play tackle, guy who can play guard, 6'5", 35-inch arms, athletic freak. This is what another example of the front office drafting off of athletic potential, believing they can develop it. The best version of Brandon Coleman is awesome. The reality is Brandon Coleman is currently inactive, and what if he's just inactive? Or what if he's just a bench player moving forward? We could look back on this 5 years from now and say that was a blown opportunity. We don't know. We have no clue how it's going to play out. So if you say trading McCollum's a mistake, I don't blame you. If you're with me and say, hey, we should really consider it, I'm not going to say that you're right either, because I don't know that I'm right. But I did mention Brandon Coleman's name in that trade. I also said Lattimore could be interesting because you would have to package him with other players or other picks. The thing about Lattimore is the team that gets him, they can say, hey, it didn't work out. We're going to move on and cut him for no penalty the way his contract is structured, or he does have another year for, I want to say, $18 million against the cap, which is what he's making this year. So that would give them a bit of flexibility on top of getting another player or another pick, however the package is organized. But to the point here, if you are going to make a trade, it can't be for a first-round pick in 26. If you're putting in a first, it's got to be like 27, 28, and it's just got to be lower picks in general. First-round draft picks are supposed to be immediate impact players. Washington has been burned in the past by bad first-round picks. Hopefully his coaching staff can draft an impact linebacker. There's no need for me to relitigate the Ron Rivera drafting. We all know how that went. Obviously, JD5 was a massive success. We are still waiting. We're waiting to see what's going to happen with Connolly. He's looked better recently. He is still the weak point on the offensive line, but it's a guy that, once again, you drafted more so for his athleticism and his potential than his immediate contributions. He's starting to get a little bit better. He's not going against as brutal of a defense or defenses as he did to start his career. So let's monitor it. Let's see how it goes. Josh Simmons is playing better than him right now. I get it. I also thought Josh Simmons was better coming out. He tore his ACL. The Commanders feel like there's more potential with Connolly. We'll see how it pans out. We'll get back to it. Do you think there's a chance that DQ takes over defensive calls? I don't see any coaches getting fired midseason, but maybe demotions are possible. So, first of all, I really appreciate the comments, guys. And if you are in the stream, please do hit that like button. Let's really shoot this out there. Let's take over this Commanders YouTube algorithm. But to answer this question, this is something that I was going to get to in my video later. I'm just pulling my notes back up because I like to follow a little bit of just an outline with topic ideas and then go rant about them. This was something that I wanted to get to, so I will skip ahead to it. But the question of coaching is one that's really interesting, and I'm glad you mentioned specifically DQ here because it ties into what I actually wanted to talk about. I feel like Joe Whitt Jr. is catching the majority of the flack for the defense, and it's understandable. He's defensive coordinator, right? He's the guy calling plays. He's the guy coaching them for the most part. They've got position coaches, obviously. Dan Quinn is the head coach. He is involved in the game plan. He can make changes. He can say, hey, Joe, get in the headset and say, hey, Joe, we got to do more of this. This is going wrong. Let's try this. And DQ was a great defensive coordinator as recently as a couple of years ago with the Cowboys. He is a defensive mind. He has won a Super Bowl as a defensive coordinator. So why is it only Joe Whitt Jr. who's catching heat for this? Now, I'm not absolving Joe Whitt Jr. in this, but what I am saying is the Commanders are, like I mentioned these stats earlier, but they're 29th in yards per pass allowed, 31st in yards per completion. In the past 2 years, so since they took over, if you look at their stats on third and fourth down, they're 23rd in EPA per play, 25th in success rate. So that puts them right at the bottom of the league. And when I think of how many times Jayden Daniels has bailed this team out with hero plays or fourth quarter comebacks or stuff like that, why does it feel like the defense can never help them? When we're talking about possible player changes, when we're talking about getting out of the 4-2-5 that every offensive coordinator in the league knows that we're going to run, when we're talking about the schematics, when we're talking about all of this, it's all Joe Whitt Jr.'s fault. We got to fire with Joe Whitt Jr. He's the worst. Why is it not Dan Quinn? Why is he not wearing some of this? After all these buzzwords you hear, the competitiveness, the run and hit style, we got to produce the ball, all this stuff, the things that Joe Whitt Jr. regurgitates. I'm not saying he doesn't buy into it. I'm not saying he doesn't believe it. Not saying that at all. But what I'm saying is it comes from Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn is the head coach. He's the one who sets the standards. He's the one who instills these principles. He's the one who lays out the blueprint. So when things don't go wrong on defense, that is tied directly back to Dan Quinn as well. Now think about it from this perspective. Let's say the Commanders had hired Ben Johnson, okay? Offensive guru, boy genius, quarterback whisperer. Let's say last year went exactly how it did. Everything was the same except Ben Johnson was the head coach. We get to this season, and what's happening with the defense right now? Looks like Mike Sainristil is regressing. Looks like Quan Martin is regressing. Looks like Marshon Lattimore is regressing. Looks like Frankie Luvu is regressing. All of that is going on. Let's just say that happened to Jayden Daniels, okay? To think of those defensive players with a defensive coach. Let's say Ben Johnson's the Commanders head coach, and Jayden Daniels is regressing. The quarterback's getting worse. The receiver's getting worse. Ben Johnson would be out of a job by the end of the year, most likely, because you can't take that risk with your franchise quarterback. If he's great coming into the league, and he shows regression in year 2, maybe it would take till year 3. But like you're seeing it with C.J. Stroud. And if you ask me right now, DeMeco Ryans is going to get fired. DeMeco Ryans is a defensive guy, so it's a little bit different. But I just think the front office is going to look at this and say, hey, we had a top 5 quarterback as a rookie. He's gotten worse in the 2 years following. We've got to make a change in leadership. Ben Johnson would probably get fired if it was his side of the ball that was getting worse. So we're here with Dan Quinn, where the front office has invested a second-round pick in Mike Sainristil, a second-round pick in Trey Amos, 3 draft picks to get Marshon Lattimore. Quan Martin is a former draft pick. I forget what round he was drafted. Johnny Newton's a second-round draft pick. Players like that. Bobby Wagner's a Hall of Famer. Frankie Luvu was a second-team All-Pro last year. You do have talent. I'm not saying not without limitations. There are players over there. There are guys who are drafted to be impact players, and it's just not happening. So we can talk about Joe Whitt Jr.'s schematics and adjustments and all of that, but Dan Quinn wears some of this. Absolutely. And I don't want that to be lost. Coming back to the comments here. Since trades were brought up, dream target would be Trayvon Walker, only 24. Is it going to happen? Highly unlikely, but wanted to throw it out there. LOL. So the Jaguars are an interesting story to me. I think also you got to monitor what happens to them over the next coming weeks, approaching the trade deadline. They've got an ultra aggressive GM. I think he's like 30 years old. He was just hired from the Rams. He's the one who gave up the 5th pick and a first next year to get Travis Hunter. That's crazy to me. I can't believe they did that. This is not revisionist history either. I said that on draft night, but they are aggressive. The Jags, you would think, would be an offensively driven team with Trevor Lawrence and Brian Thomas Jr. and Hunter and Etienne's playing the best ball of his life and Liam Cohen being this offensive genius. Yet it's their defense that's really carried them this season, and Walker's been a part of that. So if they continue to field like a really good defense and they're still winning games, I don't see them blowing it up. I think this is the last year of his rookie deal, so it would come down to how they manage the cap. But I know it's a popular trade target for a lot of Commanders fans, but I don't think it's very tenable. We need to bench Lattimore for Savage, as well as benching Bobby Wagner on passing downs for Jordan McGee. Well, Lattimore's a corner. Savage is a safety. Now, if you're saying that, I guess maybe the way that would work would be Sainristil would go outside. You would bring in Noah I into the slot, and then Savage goes in for Reeves, I think would be the way that you would structure that. I agree that Savage earned some reps, and I love Jeremy Reeves. I do appreciate his style of play, but I think I would prefer Darnell Savage at this point, assuming he has learned the playbook fully. Benching Lattimore, I'll be honest, like Lattimore frustrated me to no end to start the season. He's been good in coverage the last couple of games, although that play, everybody's talking about Quan Martin on that 55-yard touchdown by DeAndre Swift. Lattimore is lollipopping it, jogging over to just get a front row seat to watch it happen. And then when Quan doesn't make the tackle, Lattimore's like, oh, shoot, like I got to go tackle this guy. But because he was walking to the ball, that's another thing. Going back to some of the identity of this defense, I'm down to blame Joe Whitt Jr. I'm just using this very casually. I'm not actually saying I'm looking for a person to blame, be toxic or anything like that. I'm down to give Joe Whitt Jr. blame. But if Dan Quinn is telling me we're going to be running hit style, play to the whistle, all of that, and I see Marshawn Lattimore doing that, either you need to call him out, you need to say, hey, I watched it. And this is on the media too. I would love it if Nikki Jabvala, JP Finley, Donna, Candy, if anybody out there is listening to this, I would love it if you would ask DQ specifically or Joe Whitt Jr., hey, what did you make of Marshawn Lattimore on that play? Either one of the coaches has to take responsibility for it, or Lattimore has to take responsibility for it. If not, it's unacceptable, and he's got to get benched, or there's got to be a change made. Trey Amos is our number one quarterback. We need to build a secondary around him. Well, yes, 1,000%. Amos is the best we got back there. Mikey's been bad this year, and I've got some numbers on Mikey I want to go over, although he is a second-round pick. Again, it's one of these guys you drafted to be a contributor. You can't just give up on him right now, especially Mikey. As frustrating as he's been, he does seem to be like the only guy who makes big splash plays for the defense, at least in the secondary as well. You said recently that DQ is a 2 to 3 year coach. Please explain your angle on this. Oh yeah, no problem. Shout out to you, Tim Phillips. I'm just reading the name now. See you in the comments all the time. Appreciate pretty much everything that I see from you. Always love the insight you put in the comments there. Yeah, so DQ being a 2 to 3 year coach. I believe my exact words were, my fear is he's a 2-3 year coach. So just want to be clear, I'm not pigeonholing him. My fear in him being a 2 to 3 year head coach is this. Commanders were a dumpster fire. Okay, we're all fans. Let's admit it. Let's open up. Let's be honest with ourselves. We all know it. The Sean Taylor soccer cleat statue, the roof is leaking sewage, locker room, the facilities, they're like number 32 out of 32 every year on the report card. Team stinks. You can't win games. Coaches stink. Nobody wants to be there. Owner sucks. All that. You reinvent everything. I always talk about there are different ways to build teams. You can go high ceiling or you can go high floor. DQ is a high floor sort of guy. So when he comes in, he's going to instill very good values in the team. He's going to get a general sense of belief. He's going to bring everybody together. He's going to have that culture. And when we talk about him being a player coach, yeah, he's going to connect with players. He's going to make them feel like they are valued. There's going to be competition. There's going to be respect. Everybody's going to fight for one another. So that's how the Commanders go from being 4-13 to 12-5. Obviously, hitting on a franchise quarterback plays a massive part in that. But even still, if Mariota was the quarterback last year, I think the Commanders could have won 7 or 8 games. Or if Jayden had turned out to be league average, he's as good as, I was going to say, Geno Smith. Geno Smith has been terrible this year. Who's a totally average quarterback right now? If he was as good as Tua stinks now too. Let's just say he was Tua. Let's say the Commanders quarterback was Tua. I think the Commanders would have won 7 or 8 games last year. And that would have been a good turnaround because you could have seen things improving. when I say my fear is he's a 2 to 3 year coach, I feel like we're starting to see some of that this season. Now, we're only 6 weeks in. Okay, the book is still unwritten. I'm not saying that is my final opinion on the matter, but where we're at right now, I feel like, oh, we hit our head on the ceiling. And I don't know that DQ is the schematic sort of guy to move things around, manipulate games the way that Sean McVay does, the way that Kevin O'Connell does, players like that, or even defensive coaches. Mike Tomlin, I get it. It's trendy to say that he just goes 10-7 every year and loses in the first round. But let's be honest, he hasn't had a franchise quarterback. When he did have a franchise quarterback, they were doing great things. When Belichick was there, it can be a defensive guy, but they find ways to manipulate the game and always be on the cutting edge, always be improving, get more from less. My fear is DQ is not that guy. I'm hoping that I'm proven wrong because I would love for him to be here for the next 10 years. I would love to win multiple Super Bowls with him and all of that, but that's where I'm at right now. And with every passing week, I feel like that's growing more and more of a potential reality. So we'll see what happens. I know it's only week 7, but any Commanders players that deserve an extension or to be brought back in your eyes yet? Well, let me go to the Commanders salary cap multi-year because I want to make sure that I'm talking about players who are actually up for contracts right now. Jayden Daniels. Jayden Daniels has earned himself a new contract here. Spot Rack, come on. Okay, we got, yes. Okay, so I'm just running through the positions right here. Chris Rodriguez Jr., I would like to see him back as long as the money is not ridiculous or at least someone of his level's got to be brought in. But I like C-Rod. I feel like he does a good job for the role that he's in. The Debo one is a question that I've asked myself and I've put out on this channel. It's very interesting because Debo is on pace for 1,000 total yards. Up until Monday night, he'd caught a touchdown or scored a touchdown in every game this season except for one. And he's been the most available. He's currently playing through a heel injury right now. And he's opened up the playbook for the offense because he's just such a unique player. He got, I want to say, $17 or $18 million this year, fully guaranteed. It would come down to what he expects on his next contract. Now, he's going to be 29 or no, he's going to be 30 next year. Terry's going to be 31. Terry's already got his deal. I would be a little iffy about paying 2 30-plus-year-old receivers that type of money. But if Debo's going to continue to produce like this, he would be worth the money more than Terry at this point. So that's a whole can of worms. Noah Brown's unrestricted free agent. Let him go. I need someone who's going to be available. On that note, this is completely separate, but the Commanders are working out Treylon Burks, who was a former second-round pick of the Tennessee Titans today. I really hope this doesn't mean that either Noah or McLaurin is going to IR. Terry, I think, would be more likely to be the one going to IR, which is really bad. At least we've seen Noah on the sideline at practice doing some individual drills. He's also missed more time, so theoretically be further ahead in the rehab. I hope I'm wrong. Maybe this is to replace Chris Moore, which is I can't believe I'm even saying that in the first place, but something to keep an eye on. Zach Ertz, I would bring back on a 1-year deal because Ben Sinnott has not developed into the guy, unfortunately, assuming the Commanders don't sign a different tight end or draft somebody. Offensive lineman, Chris Paul. Oh, Chris Paul's a good one, actually. Chris Paul's probably my biggest. He deserves an extension. Pay the man. Chris Paul's been awesome since he got into the lineup. We'll see how it continues to evolve as season goes on because he's only in his 3rd game as a starter. But Chris Paul has been excellent so far. On the defensive side, you're probably not going to get an extension for Wise. Eddie Goldman for the minimum if the money's available. He's actually shown some stuff this season. I wouldn't hate it. Bobby Wagner's an interesting one. It's going to be it's going to depend on what he wants. It's going to depend on if he wants to play. It's going to depend on what does the coaching staff actually think of Jordan McGee? What do they actually think of Ali Cajo? What do they actually think of Kane Madrano? Can they get on the field? Jacob Martin is a guy that I don't mind moving off of. Preston Smith, I hope he's gone next week. No offense, Preston Smith. Noah Eisen, unrestricted free agent. He can't get on the field right now. So really not a ton of guys, but I guess that's a very quick breakdown, just my thoughts off the top of my head. Do we know how bad Debo's injury is that he played through last night? So my understanding is that it's kind of just a how tough are you sort of thing. It's a heel bruise. It's something that's unlikely to get aggravated by playing football, but the more you're on your feet, the more that you're cutting. Like if you were just running around, if you were training for a marathon or something like that, just being on your feet is probably not the best thing for it. So it's a pain tolerance, it's a pain management thing. He's probably not going to practice a whole lot, but I do think he's going to be playing in pretty much every game unless something drastic changes with that. So kind of going back to my discussion about the defense here, and I've been on here for 45 minutes. I've had a blast, by the way. I appreciate all you guys, especially you guys putting the comments in there. Player that I haven't spent much time talking about, Quan Martin. So Quan was a guy that coming into the season, I'm not at practices. I don't have media credentials for the Commanders. I've emailed them a couple of times and they haven't emailed me back. So I think I have a bad feeling they watched one of my angry videos and they're like, yeah, we can't get this guy media credentials, but I'm going to keep emailing them. At least they can tell me no. But I'm not there asking questions. I'm not there during the offseason. I'm not there during camp, so I can't see what's going on. I do remember B. Mitch and JP Finley made superlatives talking about things like who was the best player at camp, who was the most exciting. One of them was who's going to be a first-time Pro Bowler. And I want to say both of them said Quan for defense. It might have been Quan and Mikey, but I know Quan made an appearance on that. Had a lot of expectations for Quan. The coaching staff talked him up an awful lot. They said they were playing a lot of cover one. It's actually transitioned to a lot of cover three, but even still, he's that post safety, middle of the field, lots of responsibilities, lots of area to cover. Quan Martin right now, he's got a 19% missed tackle rate. That's the highest of his career. His yards per reception allowed is the highest of his career. He's on pace to give up 757 yards in coverage. 757. He gave up 264 last year. He's shouldering more responsibility, sure, but holy crap, that's a 300% increase. So many big plays have been in his direction, and he's been saved. There was a touchdown to the Packers that was called back for, actually, I don't know if it was a touchdown or like it was out at the 1 yard line or something, but it was the big play on the right side. It was called back for a penalty. That was on Quan Martin. This play to DeAndre Swift is probably the worst play of the season so far. Between Quan and Lattimore's lack of effort, but Quan missing that tackle. We can talk about Jayden fumbling the game away at the end, and he did do that. If you missed my 5 names to remember series, I gave Jayden a yellow square, which yellow's not good. Think of it like a traffic light. Green is obviously what you want. I called out Jayden for fumbling the ball, but we might never be in that position if Quan Martin just does what he's supposed to. Swift is literally tiptoeing up the sideline, tackle him, knock him out, do anything. The form, the technique was just so bad. And you let DeAndre Swift, again, a guy who had been the worst starting running back in the whole NFL, has his first 100-yard game since the last time he played the Commanders, and he's second on the Bears in receiving yards with like 60-something yards. 55 of them come on that play. Quan's been really bad this year. He has been really bad. And he's someone that, once again, I'm just starting to really reconsider what my own thoughts are with this defense, because I thought the safety spot was solidified. Will Harris, it's unfortunate he breaks his leg. Like there's nothing you can do about that. But all I heard was the Commanders media had said all offseason, this is a top 10 secondary. Quan is poised for a leap. The coaching staff told me Quan is poised for a leap. Freaking Joe Whitt or Dan Quinn, one of them said, no, Dan Quinn said Jordan McGee is an outstanding linebacker. Joe Whitt Jr. said Jordan McGee was the best defensive player at camp, but they're not putting him on the field. I feel like I have to go solely off of what I can see. And what I can see is limited, because a player can be doing excellent in practice. They can be doing all these things. They can be spending extra time in the treatment. They can be spending extra time in the weight room. They can be doing all these things. But from what I see on the field, I feel like that's all I have to judge this team off of now, because I can't trust the word of the coaches. That's where I'm at with them. I can't trust the word of the coaches right now. When are they going to start training these guys how to tackle? It's like they're scared to get hurt by actually hitting. So yeah, this is, did you leave this comment on the video? Someone left this comment. I think it was you, Big Obi. Someone left this comment, and the only explanation I have is they are over teaching. You know how they always talk about we got to produce the ball. My only thought is maybe they are over teaching, trying to punch the ball out, and the players are prioritizing that instead of tackling, and they don't know how to do both at the same time. They don't know how to pick their spots, but tackling's been an issue for 2 years. And back to what I was saying about Dan Quinn being a defensive head coach. If Dan Quinn was an offensive coach and Jayden was regressing, how would you look at him? Well, he's a defensive head coach, and we're on 2 years now, and the team doesn't know how to tackle. So what does that say about him? If this defense can force turnovers and tackle properly, it can change the defense annoyed with the easy drop interceptions. Yeah, you're not wrong, and this is boiling the game down to a very simple level, and I'm not saying that your thought is simple, because it shouldn't be difficult. Catch the pass when it's thrown to you, tackle the guy in front of you. Football is not that complex. But when we get to a spot where the team just can't do that, and we finally, if there's one thing that I think DQ let slip. Every once in a while, when he deviates from his soundboard where he's just pushing the buttons and it means he's saying the same thing. Imagine like a DJ deck. Every time he deviates from that, you get a little sliver of something. And he said that he wasn't happy with how the linebackers fit the runs. So we finally heard something about Bobby and Frankie. A little bit negative. We're probably not going to get it again. But can we get Jordan Magee, please? I need to see with my own eyes that Jordan Magee is bad at football. That's where I'm at. I can't take their word. I can't take their word that Bobby and Frankie 100% of the snaps is the right thing at this point, because it's not working. It's just not. So put Jordan Magee out there. Let me see it doesn't work, and then put him back on the bench. Why not? Why can't we at least try that? Crazy because these are supposed to be pros. Yeah, it is a little bit ridiculous at this point. I'm just checking my notes over here because there were a couple of things I wanted to go over. Oh, Frankie Luvu, of course. This is a big one too. So Frankie Luvu's presence has been significantly lower than it was last year. That's not me breaking news to anybody. To my eyes, it feels like he's being dropped into coverage more than he was last year. So I went and checked the stats, and it's actually very similar. He's in coverage about 3.5% more than he was last year as far as coverage snaps versus pass rushing reps. But 3.5% is not that big of a deal. The reason that it feels so different to me is his presence as a pass rusher has been completely diminished. He's on pace for just 20 pressures this year. He had 42 last year. So he's less than half the player rushing the quarterback than he was last year. His missed tackle rate is also up 2.3%. It's something in the high teens. It is the highest of his career since he became a starter. He's also on pace for just 60 tackles, which is the lowest of his career since he became a starter. He had 75 last year. So now he's on pace for, he would be underperforming by 20% compared to last year. My question here is, okay, Frankie Luvu, we've heard from Joe Whitt Jr., opposing offenses are treating him as a big. They're treating him as a defensive lineman, essentially. Okay, I get that opens up opportunities for Dorrance Armstrong and Von Miller and some of these other guys who have had good years. The best unit on the Commander defense has been their defensive line, no doubt. So Frankie Luvu does play, he does have a presence in that. He does play a role. But if the counter to that is we're just going to drop him back in coverage more, or we're going to use him with sim pressures, or we're just going to let him blitz and get blocked because we're expecting that to happen right now, and either it's Bobby in the middle of the field in coverage or it's Bobby and Frankie, what's the point? Is the decoy, is the threat of Frankie being a blitzer, just to have him drop back in coverage, is that really worth, once again, not giving a rep to Jordan Magee, not giving a rep to K. Madrano, not giving a rep to Ali Cajo? Are the mental gains worth it that much when you're seeing how bad the zone coverage has been in the middle of the field? And not just the zone, the man and the match. Frankie and Bobby can't stick on anyone one-on-one, and their lack of speed severely limits their ability to guard the middle of the field. Now, Frankie did have a great play on the 4th and 1 against Caleb, although I'll be honest, I think he ad-libbed it. I think he was supposed to rush the passer, realized he was getting nowhere, and dropped back and read Caleb's eyes and got a hand on the ball. Great job doing that. But then you get to the 3rd and 5 on the Bears' final possession. It's at midfield. It's the 6-yard completion on the right to Colston Loveland where he catches it and just falls down, make sure that he secures it. That's a cover 3 on Frankie's side of the field, and he's so slow that he's not going to get out there. And I feel guilty. It sounds like I'm accusing Luvu, just like it sounded like I was accusing Wagner, and I'm not. Their strengths are not dropping back into coverage. And you're not always going to be tasked with doing what you're best at, but right now Frankie Luvu is in coverage on about 60, 65, 70% of snaps. He does have the threat of being a blitzer, but if he's going to be dropping back into coverage that often, why don't we just get more speed on the field? Why don't we get someone who's better at coverage? Why, maybe in this upcoming draft, why don't we draft somebody? Why don't we sign somebody in free agency? Those are future solutions, and we can revisit this, of course, but I just feel like it's a very obvious change for this team. And it's something that, again, leaves me questioning, is this a scheme issue? Is this a player issue? There's so many confounding variables, and there's so many overlapping problems that I'm having a tough time just figuring out what my own thoughts are. Crazy. Oh, I already put this on the screen. Sorry, it looked like it was a new comment. I'll be honest, guys. I'm kind of running out of my notes here. I feel like we hit on everything. If you got any final comments, I'll give it about another minute or two. Would love to answer them. I really do appreciate you guys being here. This looks like, I can see at the top of my screen right here, there's a little viewer count. It seems like this is the best, most successful live stream that I've done. So if you guys did enjoy it, make sure that you do leave a like on the video. As a native Washingtonian, I'm born with a passion about this team. I'm noticing there's a lack of pride on the field, like they're not playing for a city that goes hard for them through good and through bad times. Yeah, I can understand that. There are a couple of guys. Javon Kinlaw, can't say enough about him. Can't sing his praises enough. For all the people who want to criticize Adam Peters, that was probably his most controversial decision to sign Kinlaw, give him that contract. Kinlaw's been excellent. He fights. He says everything right. He takes accountability. Been so proud of him. Been so proud of Jayden and the way that he's fought. But last year, Terry was the fighter. And in a way, like, Terry can't fight right now because he's injured. But when he was on the field, it didn't feel like he was fighting. There's been changes on the offensive line. I'll give it to Bill. Bill is fighting. There's some of the defensive guys. I'm just trying to run through my head. The secondary, I guess Amos is really the only one who feels like he's fighting. Maybe Mikey in some spots, but Mikey's also getting taken advantage of. Yeah, I don't think this is a bad take. Winning solves all in the NFL, and right now the Commanders are on this roller coaster. Win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. Maybe if they can rip off a 3-4 game win streak, you'll start to feel that difference, but I don't disagree that this is how it is right now. Hot take tomorrow, 100%. I will be recording it in the morning. I'm not entirely sure when I'm going to be putting it out. It'll be out before lunchtime at the very latest, I assume. But yes, hot takes coming tomorrow. I know the Jags won't give him up without a fight this free agency, but would love Devin Lloyd. Yeah, 100%. And going back to the Walker trade bit earlier, they traded Tyson Campbell for not Denzel Ward. Gosh, why am I blanking on his name? Greg Newsome. So they already made that change. They do have to re-sign Devin Lloyd, and they do have to re-sign Walker as well. They've got some decisions to make. Josh Hines Allen is a guy who's probably going to attract some interest. So it's being interesting to see what happens with the Jaguars defense, because they're probably not going to bring everybody back. And this is a guy that maybe could end up on the market. It's still better than what Snyder put out there. Well, yeah. I mean, me, Trey, Tim, Big Obi, TMB, June, like, we're better than what Dan Snyder put on the field. So that you're right, but that's also not saying much. That showcase last night was hurtful to us. We deserve better than this. Yes, we do. And I'm sure we're going to get it at some point, but can we get it in consecutive weeks? Doing it against the Cowboys, not just because they are the Cowboys, but coming off of a loss, can we just restore the feeling? Can we walk into Jerry World and snatch a W? That would be big for me. A great stream. Hope everyone's fantasy teams do well this week. Listen, I'm in a dynasty league. I was tanking. I was tanking so hard. I don't know if anybody else here does dynasty. If you do, leave me a little note in the chat. This is my first time ever doing dynasty, which is weird because I'm a super, super sports nerd, football nerd especially. I do fantasy every year. I've never done a dynasty. You get picks for 25, 26, 27, 28. So that meant I had 4 first-round picks. At one point, I had 14. I had completely blown my team up, yet somehow I ended up with Herbert, Scattaboo, Egbuka, Bill. Struggling to even remember who else is on my team right now. Tucker Kraft is my tight end. Who is my other running back? Breece Hall. So my team isn't bad, and I'm actually sitting at 500 right now, so I'm going all in, and I'm actually trying to trade for BTJ and Adunze right now. So I started the year tanking. I then became a buyer, and I actually still have a lot of reserve picks. So first year of dynasty, it's going pretty well. Big Obi, defense, kicker, turnovers. Yeah, the Matt Gay thing, I haven't spoken about that yet on this video, but Matt Gay's not helping anybody right now. It was even worse in person, in the rain too. Like, that's just rubbing salt in the wounds. Clapping the Cowboys cheeks makes all this go away, at least for a little while. Yes, I'm not going to lie, it does. If we walk into Dallas and we can blow them off the field, the big thing, the really big thing would be rolling it over and beating the Chiefs in Arrowhead. Now, there's voodoo magic out there. They just showed the world, just when you count them out, just when the Lions are better than them. Everybody knew the Lions were better than them, yet they beat the Lions convincingly. Lions were never going to win that game. I'm not optimistic about how we're going to do walking into Arrowhead right now. Fam, my Bears took over y'all stadium. I heard Let's Go Bears on TV. That's wild. I don't know how true that is. I'll be honest. I don't really watch the TV or watch the game on TV with the sound on for the most part, or if I do, it's pretty low. I don't like to have my thoughts changed by the commentators, and also I'm rewinding a lot and then skip. If I'm watching it live, I'll rewind it so I can watch the play again, maybe rewind it again, type something in my notes, and then I'll skip ahead 15 seconds so I'm back up with action. I don't know if that was true. Shout out to the Bears fans that turned up. What am I going to say? You guys, if you made the trip out there, or if you're from the DMV and you went to the game, you guys deserved it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to sit here and talk down on you because you won a game of football. I will say that it does happen. If your team's winning, usually they're the ones chanting. But congratulations. Congratulations on the win. Major pause, LOL. Yeah. On that note, I feel like that's an appropriate way to end the stream. Guys, I'm going to go ahead and get on out of here. Seriously, I appreciate you all being here. Just cracked the 1 hour mark on the stream. So if you guys did enjoy, make sure you hit the like button. Hot takes coming tomorrow morning. Be on the lookout for those. As I always say, guys, enjoy the rest of your evenings. I appreciate you being here. I will catch you in the next one. Have a great day.